Hello and welcome to the Media Well podcast, where we talk all things content creation. I'm Eric.
And I'm Justin.
And whether you're hitting record on your phone for the first time or whether you're working on your next cinema film, we are going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff that will help you the next time you hit record. Today, we are going to be diving into a much debated topic, and that is the topic of filmmaker versus content creator. We both have a lot of opinions on that, and I think today's conversation is really going to bring home a lot of the fact that, I don't want to spoil anything, but the two worlds might not be as far apart as they seem. I think really that's what we're both kind of getting to. So I want you to start by giving us a AI-created definition of what a content creator is.
Yeah, so I threw this in Notion. We use Notion project management app, and they have a new AI there. And it said that a content creator is someone who produces and distributes content, often for social media or digital platforms. This can include videos, podcasts, blog posts, and other types of media. I guess I posed the question for you, what is a content creator in your mind?
This is a beautiful podcast, and I'm so excited to be talking about this because I think we both come from both worlds. I started, as you guys found out in the last episode, as primarily a content creator by definition. And I think you kind of just always were a filmmaker. You created content, but in your head, you were always a filmmaker. I think that's probably fair to say. So I kind of agree with this definition. I have it here on my iPad. That's kind of why I'm looking down right now. I want to reread it again. A content creator is someone who produces and distributes content. The distribution side, I don't know if I'm as sold on, because I think in our heads, that's more of like a social media manager.
Yeah, there's marketing. Yeah.
Often for social media or digital platforms. I think we can both agree on that. This can include videos. Easy answer, sure. Podcasts. Well, shit, that's what we're doing right now. Blog posts. I would say that falls under content. And other types of media, which I think is fair. Content creator versus filmmaker. We are obviously mostly coming at this from the side of, from a video standpoint, photo video. But I do agree. I think content creation does cover a lot of those bases. And I think it's important to represent those different creative fields within the umbrella of content creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, content creation is it's something. When I think of content creation, I think of schedules and like putting out a lot at once, and quantity over quality. When I think of filmmaking, I think of quality and story. I think that's the one thing. Story was left out of that AI definition for content creation, which I think great content creators still understand what story is.
Do you think that maybe, though, 5 to 10 years ago, that definition would hold more true? Not to say the story has never been a part of it, but I think we are in a great position now, because I think now people are like, oh shit, like that story really does make a difference. But I think before it was like, the more, it was the Gary Vee mindset. Not that that's a bad thing, but like the more the better.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times like that naturally left out the story, but I also think like it wasn't the intent mostly at the beginning.
I just think anyone that's great is a storyteller, no matter the medium.
True.
Whether it's Jake Paul when Vine started, or it's Gary Vee, like they just are. They make you, they hook you, they take you through a journey, and they give you a payoff. And content, I think a lot of people don't, a lot of businesses that are like, we need content, they forget about the storytelling aspect. They just want posts. And that's where it misses the mark sometimes. And I think really good content creators, people that know their brand and, personal branding, do a great job with, getting the story out in content bite-sized form, we call it. I do want to ask you this though: is there a little bit of beef between filmmakers and content creators?
I think to answer that, you need to answer me this. What would you call Casey Neistat?
Filmmaker.
Why?
He started in the filmmaking world. I think he really understands story. Everything's story driven. There's no short form is not like a. I'm sure he does some short form content, but like he's telling the story no matter how long it takes. I mean, he had an HBO television series with his brother. He was always talking filmmaking. He is a filmmaker that went to a content platform at the time, which I think YouTube is a place that's actually evolving into more of a, it allows everyone to kind of be there. And how we talked about content creators and filmmakers kind of doing this thing, coming together. YouTube, I think, is the place where that's happening the best. I would say he's for sure a filmmaker that is learning how, or has pretty much mastered how to get his content out there.
So before we get into the beef or lack thereof, what do you think? I don't know if you want to list three out, but what are the primary differences between content creation and filmmaking? We let AI define content creation.
Yeah.
And I think we did that because I think we both position ourselves as filmmakers first. So I think we wanted to see an artificially, whether, an outside perspective as to what content creation is. Because I think we, as a business model, Mutable Productions is a filmmaking space first. But we don't say no to content in the right areas because content can involve story.
Yes.
So if they're one and the same, why aren't they one and the same?
Right. Well, filmmaking came first, so that's part of the reason. Filmmaking's been around for a long time, and I think there is a hesitation to compare filmmakers to content creators because it's strictly both people have cameras and they're filming stuff. Why aren't they the same? And you make that point. But to me, filmmaking is such a more nuanced and just deep process that starts years sometimes before the record button's ever pressed. When, a filmmaker sits down with a story, every single aspect is being brought under attention and how we're going to approach that, whether it's lighting, audio, locations, wardrobe, what shoes is the character wearing because his dirty shoes is going to show he came from a tougher environment, or maybe, what hat are they going to have on? Like all these things are taken into account to help tell a story about a character, about, an environment. And in content, you don't have time, you don't have budget, and you can't get that deep into the weeds on character development and storytelling. But with content, you got to find a way to do that as fast and efficiently and quickly as you can so that you can make a post 6-7 days a week. So I think a lot of the nuanced things are kind of kicked out of the window when it comes to content creation. Wardrobe designers are probably not being hired for some content for personal brands. But then you may have a big commercial shoot that's like, hey, we need a story commercial by filmmakers, but I also need you to pump us out, 6 or 7 pieces of content after that. So that's a different world. And in that aspect, filmmaking is what's kind of leading the charge. And then the content is kind of being just kind of added to the side.
I'm about to make you really upset.
Do it.
I'm going to put this into perspective. Now, I want to be fully transparent when I say this. I am saying this as somebody who does consider themselves a filmmaker first, but I want to put this on the table and see how you respond. So content creation, by the way you kind of just explained it, less pre-production, less emphasis on a lot of the nuances of what a film is. Now, filmmaking, yes, is by definition a lot broader. But I want to bring us back home to what probably most people listening to this are experiencing and taking a part in. So I'm making content for my LinkedIn page, let's say. I am going to go on my iPad. I've got a list of topics that I want to cover, bullet points to those topics, pre-production, some would say. I'm going to go into my office. I'm going to put up a camera. I'm going to admittedly overproduce it, which again is kind of the transparency of, am I just a filmmaker who's making content? But I want to just see what you say. I go and I set up a camera, put the boom pole up. Redundancy is key. Lav myself as well. Get my script up. Maybe I even use a teleprompter. See how I feel that day. Get a light. Maybe I'm doing some nice, good key light. Got some window to fill. Doing all of those things. What am I?
You're a filmmaker making content.
Okay. I didn't really have it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear your answer to that.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from with it. You have access and knowledge of the filmmaking space, and you're applying that to your content creation abilities. Now, the mom that is just a wonderful chef that starts a side page and starts showing recipes, she's a content creator. Every night she, makes a new recipe and cuts it up, drops it on TikTok. It's content. It's good content that I love following to help my,
Yes.
my tastes. She doesn't know what you know. So if you start the same page, it's going to be created completely different because you have a set of skills from filmmaking that you can apply to that, right? Which one performs better? Don't know.
Probably not mine.
Probably not. And a lot of the things say, hey, you need to make content for the platform you're putting it on. If you're putting it on TikTok, probably got to make TikTok content. I mean, I saw Peter McKinnon did a overproduced video and then did one with his phone. The phone one went viral. The other one did okay. Like, that's a whole different world. Algorithms, that's probably another talk. But I think you are a filmmaker at heart, so you're always going to approach that way. We have talked about just making on our cell phone sometimes, right? And just making content and getting it out. Which way's better? I don't know. For me, it hurts my heart to not put in the meticulous effort to make things perfect. And we talk about that. That's one of my Achilles heels sometimes is I need things to be like.
I'm going to step in there.
Right.
So for some context to those listening or watching, we are batch recording the first 4 episodes. It's going to be the 3 on the launch and then the one that you're listening to right now. Right after we're done with this episode, we're going to record all of the launch content that we need to make. Justin and I have had this conversation before, and we're going to implement it in 2 different ways. So I am going to be recording all of my launch content from my phone. But Justin is going to be recording all of his launch content from our professional cinema camera. Why? You did start that, so just kind of continue.
Yeah, we're interested to see, does it matter? Is it my ego that says I have a big camera right here and I need this to be done this way?
I do feel that way.
Right.
Like if I get to take the FX6 home, I'm like, well, shit, like I have them.
I got the good stuff today.
If you smoke, smoke them if you got them. But
right. But does it matter? Or can it work one and the same? And that would be something that we kind of look at too. So I don't know. The filmmaker in me wants to always do it, plan for a $100 million budget and work it down to whatever we're allotted and able to do.
And go ahead.
Yeah, because then I'm looking at everything as big as possible, and I'm just stripping back based on time constraints, budgets, whatever that is. And I think that's a big part of filmmaking is being able to adapt. Content creation. I think really and honestly at the end of the day, 10, 15 years from now, content creation filmmaking will be a thing underneath the umbrella of content creation, unfortunately. I mean, you look at the streaming services and how quickly they're pumping out movies, and it's becoming content. They're filming seasons in 3 weeks. Like, that's crazy. That's a lot of work, a lot of specific work, but the industry is changing. They're not taking... We're not going to see as much of, movies like Avatar taking 10 years because it's, only those certain directors are going to get opportunity to do that, but everybody else better be very efficient.
Well,
and that's how the industry is changing because of streaming.
Yeah, and I kind of bring that up because, my thought process is both create for the platform that you're on, but also create with the tools that you have access to. Now, when we're done recording this, we have all our cameras set up. We've got the microphone set up. We have everything set up. I could record with everything. But to me, I am choosing to record from my phone for the purpose to say, I want you to go see the content as the content is. And I want to make this video announcing the launch of our podcast feel like it's more of a drop in the hat. Not to say that it was an afterthought, but to say, I felt that this was important enough that maybe I didn't need to overproduce this, but I really wanted to share this personal accomplishment with you.
You feel like it resonates with people differently because it's just like
it feels more
like,
personal.
It's almost like a FaceTime.
Like you said, right? The only LinkedIn message that you've replied to was because somebody sent you a personalized video.
Yeah.
And I feel like this, although it's a post, feels that way.
Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know if I would have felt differently if the guy was a filmmaker and did but it was still personalized. But I get what you mean by like, it's just, hey man, it's real down to earth. This is what we're doing. Like,
right.
Yeah. It's so hard for my soul to do that because I just love Rembrandt lighting or whatever, just things looking nice and crisp. Like,
yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting thing. So then let me ask you, is it possible for filmmakers, how should they approach their personal branding? Because that is also a thing that I think that a lot of filmmakers are forgetting about.
Yeah.
I just had a conversation with a good friend recently. I'm like, we got to see you more, man. Like, we're seeing some of your content, your films or whatever you're putting out, but I want to see you in action, see what you're doing, and learn more about you. Because to me, and I think we think much differently than other, maybe purist filmmakers, but I want to work with someone because I like them. Yes, I want the best film possible. But if it's like me versus somebody else and we are exactly the same, I want the person that like I connect with, I can resonate with what they're doing. I believe in their mission. I just like them as a human being. Like, personal branding is super huge. And we talked about that with sports. Like, man, there's so much money to be made if you're just personable and show a little bit into the inside. You know what I mean? It's like Mike Trout kind of doesn't, right, in baseball. And then you got Shohei Ohtani, who's just like the biggest marketing thing ever. Yep. They're on the same team. I think you could compare them as like they're both like some of the best ever.
Yeah.
But like the marketing's different, right?
Very.
So, yeah, I don't know. How can filmmakers do better to market themselves by making content?
Yeah, and
not being afraid.
I'm going to answer this one to filmmakers specifically because, again, that goes back to, and I think you really posed it well there, is I want to know the person that I'm working with, but I also want to see their expertise. Mm-hmm. So a lot of how I position my personal content, I'm going to be totally honest, I really am only posting on LinkedIn these days. That may change, but depending upon when you're listening to this episode. But for me right now, that's where I feel the most benefit comes from. And I don't know, I'm not taking as many photos on Instagram and Twitter, whatever. You can say whatever you want about each platform, but like for me, that's where I feel like the most value is. So that's where I'm really focusing my time and growing the business and personally. But with that being said, I like to make sure that people know who I am, but also can say, if I have a question about filmmaking, I'm going to go to this person. Mm-hmm. Now, my approach on LinkedIn and social media in general is I'm coming at people that might have never posted a video before, have never created a video before, but, a lot of my tips, I'll prompt you on maybe talk some tips for people later on. But I always say, make sure the light is in front of you, not behind you. You don't want to be a silhouette on your phone. Make sure you're not looking up their nose. What is seemingly simple stuff. But like a lot of people will be like, I really never thought about that. Yeah. Those are all things that are like super easy to do. I just rotate my body. I just bring the phone up. But like stuff that, people don't know to do, just stuff that we just do because we do it. That's just our expertise just coming through naturality.
And I think and this is maybe the filmmaker coming out of me, but I think filmmaking is, and this might be what I classified as, filmmaking is the highest level of content creation.
Yes.
It's the max, it's the platinum, it's the apex of content creation. So I think if you look at any content creator that starts and has been around for a long time, their content has gotten progressively more crispy and filmmakers. The microphones have gotten better, the lighting. You look at some of these YouTube channels, you're like, damn, this is like watching TV now, because they've got teams and people that are like us that are producing their content. They're not just click and record on their phone anymore. So like, yes, it's all in the same bubble, but as you know more, you do better sometimes,
I think it's interesting.
And you come from to teach others that.
But just something that popped in my head when you said that was like, if it made business sense for us to, I'm just going to throw out Lions Tech Tips, Lions Sebastian, LTT, Lions Media Group. I love, recently they've taken an approach on, they have somebody on staff that just gets behind the scenes stuff. And like, it's so cool to see like the camera ops with the full easy rig setup, and they've got the FX6 in hand and the teleprompter, and like, that's a legit, like, that's stuff that we would use on a professional set.
Yeah, this is,
and it's like, too. It's so funny to me, because I'm thinking to myself, like, obviously it makes more sense for them to have that in-house. I'm not at all saying that we would ever be in a position to take over something like that for somebody. But, I'm thinking in my head, like, shoot, like, if it made business sense, that would be something that we wouldn't say no to.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that is at this point, and let's be honest, YouTubers only, let's just say, are getting more eyes than cable TV in a lot of different avenues. Like Pat McAfee is going to ESPN, and it's so they can launch and grow their YouTube presence, right? It only makes sense that the money is starting to flow that way and the production values are going this way, and the filmmakers are pushing that. There's a lot more opportunity. It used to be like, oh, you film for a YouTuber, like you don't want that job.
Right.
Now it's like you can have a legitimate lifestyle if you're working for the right creator, right? And I mean, for us, we're always like, we're going to keep we're growing our internal world, right? But like working for some company or production or YouTube channel, like that's not a bad gig anymore. And there's a lot of value there if you have the right knowledge and tools to really elevate that platform for them. You know what I mean? Let's see. I wanted to ask you, are there any real deal like filmmakers that stand out to you that are present on social media, YouTube? Really, YouTube, I think, has been the place where like these people, like there's a couple that come to mind, but are there any that you kind of like checking out?
I almost feel like I want to play the Uno reverse card, because I'm going to humbly admit this is not the place where I spend my time.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. The way I'll answer this is I'm so interested in, this is going to get way off topic, and I think we can probably cover this better in another episode that we have planned, but I want to bring it up here. I was looking yesterday. We went to the Brewer game for Father's Day. And what was so cool to me is all of the player graphics when they're doing their walk-ups, somebody's coming from the bullpen. It made me happy that all of that was done on an LED panel wall. Every single shot. And some of the shots even were zoomed out far enough that you could see the edge of the wall. So we're not in the world of do it all on a green screen and figure it out later. We're in the world of this is happening here and now. And I think that makes me happy, because I think it opens the door for so much possibility. And somebody that maybe I think falls into this category, I don't know if I would say that she was a filmmaker first, but I think has taken akin to a lot of filmmaking techniques. Sarah Dietschy recently did a video on, pretty much that topic.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool that the line is being blended
Yeah.
so much more as time passes.
She's a great storyteller. And
Right.
she got her kickoff because she
Casey
copied Casey Neistat,
another storyteller.
made a story of him, copying him, and went viral. So, like, I think, you fall into whatever category you are interested in, and that's your niche. But, like, I think the credit sometimes, some of these, like, content creators are just great filmmakers and just great storytellers and have learned that over time, right? Not all of them are making Hollywood films, and if that's the bar, then, there's not a lot of filmmakers out there.
That's
but that's
true.
not,
There's arguably less filmmakers
right,
now.
But that's not really the bar, because I know plenty of people that, just here in Milwaukee, that they are filmmakers by heart. Like, they live and breathe what's dropping at the movie theater and implementing things into their own films and creating stories, and it's very impressive. And then there's, other people that are just like content creators, storytellers in different mediums. Like, it's just a bunch of different mediums. For me, like, when I'm looking to learn and I want to learn more, and I think there's so many more resources now than there's ever been about filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because there's some real filmmakers that are starting to brand themselves on YouTube, especially. And, someone that stands out to me is Mark Bone. And Mark Bone is a documentary filmmaker, if you don't know him. He's done documentaries that have been on television shows, picked up all over. And he's got a YouTube channel that is very, very specific to that niche. And helped me tremendously over the last couple of years, learning about storytelling, learning about better techniques on giving interviews or, lighting, just all these great things that there really wasn't a lot of resources on. You have like Film Riot that does like a lot of VFX and like crazy cool stuff, and you learn a lot of like, things that are pretty legit there. But this guy was like talking the mental game of filmmaking, and that really changed my perspective a lot and really helped me, because from being an athlete, the mental game is so important, right? And finding what that feels like as a filmmaker is really interesting. So like a guy like him or Danny Gravitz, who probably self-funded through YouTube the first ever full-length feature film that's coming out soon. Matty Hapoya was like executive producer. They like funded money on YouTube, crowdfunded, and I think all YouTubers and subscribers helped on the film from a production side. So like just a super cool idea, and they did it, and it's coming out soon. So like the landscape's changing.
Yeah.
We're all becoming, we're working together. And I think something that a few years ago, like, and I see a lot of old heads like, content, what the fuck is that? Like, no, you're either this or you're that.
Yeah.
And the lines are just blurred too much. Like, you kind of need all of it to be successful in some way. Like, you just look at, like, Disney puts out a movie, but then they drop the behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
They've got content coming out. If you're interested in that world, there's more than just the movie that you can learn about and find out more about. Like, it's about content, low key.
I think it's so interesting because when content became a thing, due to the advent of social media, most certainly as part of it, filmmakers kind of got a little scared. Is content the next film? And I think what's interesting is we've gone so far into that thought that now we're realizing that filmmaking is kind of the new content creation. And that goes back to storytelling. And I say that to say that storytelling is king in all of this. Content creator, filmmaker, we're coming at this from a very smaller lens, no pun intended there, because, we are a business that does both filmmaking and content creation. We produce films and commercials that are on television. We produce content for clients of ours that go on their social media page. We have to know both worlds. But at the same time, we get to apply things from one to the other and vice versa. I think that's a very interesting dichotomy.
Yeah. And I think it's always going to evolve. I mean, I'm a huge like proponent that Apple just changed everything with this Vision Pro thing. Like that's going to be implemented into our workflow eventually because you tell me that content's not going to be on there. Like,
Right.
The first social media app that drops for that is probably going to be very extensive. And whoever does that first is going to be very rich. And the people that can create that content and build it are going to also continue to move forward. And, you know, we can't be rigid. I think like there's always going to be this like nuance, like going to a movie in a theater and watching it for the very first time is an experience that cannot be matched. I don't think it's going anywhere, but theaters took a huge hit in the last 3 years and people got used to sitting at home and watching the same thing there or waiting. I mean, I got my brother-in-law watches every movie on his cell phone in bed next to his kids because he's got to make sure they, you know, get them to sleep or whatever.
Yeah.
Like people just consume content way different, consume movies way different than they used to. So that's always going to kind of evolve whatever comes from it. You know what I mean? So you just can't be rigid and say, oh, I'm only doing it this way because, you know, you don't want to be a dinosaur and miss out on blessings that are coming. You want to always be ahead of the game, like we talk about a lot. Like what's coming next? How can we position ourselves as a company to be able to be a part of that wave? That's how you create longevity.
The saddest part about this episode is no matter how many episodes of this podcast we end up making, this is probably going to be the one that I'm like, damn, I wish I would have said that or wish I would have brought that up because this landscape, I think specifically, is so fluid.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's really going to be a beautiful thing.
It's changed so much. Like, dude, when I first started getting into filmmaking, like, people would be like, hey, here's $200 to make, you know, 10 pieces of content a month for us. Like, there was no money in it.
Mm-mm.
Now it's like companies are like, hey, can you shoot this big project? This is going to, you know, be $5,000-$10,000 or whatever, and you're going to give us some content. Like, it's crazy to how it's changed so fast to where you can have a viable lifestyle being a content creator. And that ain't even talking about like the social media people that are getting bags by just like, you know, promotion, ad revenue, you know, all this stuff. You know what I mean? Just like product placement. I mean, there are people just put our product in there and use it, and we'll give you this much money per episode. I mean, we've even been approached by, hey, we'll pay you to review our product.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing a couple years ago. That I just thought all these people got free stuff. I didn't know they were giving them free stuff and paying for the
And
video.
getting paid for it, yeah.
I'm like, damn, that's legit. And that world is new, man. And the internet has created so much opportunity for people like us. And if you can just be malleable and learn and do the research, and hopefully this podcast might open your eyes to something new that you could try. Like, man, there's so much money out here. Like I told my uncle, I talk about my uncle in my last episode. He was a photographer only, portrait photographer only. And I said, man,
get some content.
you better start filming stuff, man. And he was like, you know, I'll try to from time to time, you know. And he was a Nikon shooter his whole life. And he finally decided to buy him a Sony, start filming, doing some video work. And man, a year later, he shot a documentary that he's literally traveling for. People are watching it, and he's being paid to be there. He's got multiple projects. Like, he's doing so well, and I just am so happy for him. But he, like, pivoted and wasn't afraid of, like, all right, like I told him, I was like, you could do, like, $200 photo shoots, or you can, like, make some good money by spending the same amount of time to work on a project. You just got to learn that. Mm-hmm. It's a new tool, but there's so much out there. And I think there's a lot of people, no matter what you're doing and what world you're in, like, just staying flexible, because everything's changing so fast, you know. By the time you listen to this probably something new will be out.
100%, yeah. I have a few couple questions to help people at any stage. You know, that's part of what this podcast is, so I do want to acknowledge that. But I skirted around the beef part.
Yeah.
So let me get to that first. Is there beef between filmmakers and content creators? I don't know if I'm in enough of that space to know that answer definitively, but I would say that I felt that there was. And I think I had beef toward content creators that had filmmaking expertise. Or I should say, I'm just using this as an example, but like the Peter McKinnons of the world, right? That we're so good at filmmaking as a content creator.
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, like, I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah.
And I'm going to admit that, like, you know, because, and maybe I'm coming at this from more of a, we're producing so much work for our clients that we don't get to do the same for ourselves. That's neither here nor there. But, you know, I think that at first, you know, like we said in my episode, I was just making Call of Duty videos, right? There was no production, and that was just pure content.
Yeah.
But I became a filmmaker.
Yeah.
You, on the flip side, we're doing films. You shot your own short film, and now here's a business part of what we do is content.
Yeah. Now I'm on a podcast.
Right. Doing nothing but content.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is there beef?
I think if you talk to,
Is it who you talk to?
yeah,
I'm just not a beef person, so I would say no. But like, I don't know. Maybe.
yeah, I think if you talk to like Martin Scorsese or you talk to, you know, Christopher Nolan, they would tell you you're not a real filmmaker. They'd probably tell me I'm not a real filmmaker.
Right.
I'm a content creator.
Right. Get a Academy Award, then let's talk.
Yeah, it's all relevant. But I would most likely think that they would be able to be visionaries enough to understand what's coming and that content creation is the future and filmmaking is part of that in that landscape. I don't think filmmaking at that level is ever going away because it is truly magical, you know, but the world of like, I can make money and live a great life talking about, you know, different types of, I don't know, yard equipment.
Real though.
There's a real business out there. And when I'm looking for, you know, a new rake, I go and I look at YouTube videos and
Isn't
there's
it funny
somebody
the
that's
things that you
getting paid.
do look at YouTube, like something that you're like, there's no place for me to be watching a YouTube video on this to know if I should make a purchasing decision.
Yeah.
But here I am.
Yeah. And there's much better content by filmmakers that is on YouTube and helps me make great additions. I mean, my family, we've been looking for a new family car. I went and I've been just scouring YouTube for videos, and there's some stuff that's dope that's like TV shows where they're reviewing cars. Then there's other people that have their cell phone and they're just taking you through and showing it.
Yeah.
And who's to tell me which one's better because I might get the info from one or the other. Like it
I'm
doesn't
just going to say this though.
necessarily matter.
You got value from both.
I definitely do. And it depends on how the story was brought.
Yeah.
So I think story is everything. And it is where, you know, no matter what medium you're in, what you consider yourself, it's all labels that don't really matter, actually. So at the end of the day, are people watching what you're doing? If they are, you're making money.
Well, and I think it's so interesting because, you know, I kind of said it lightly at the beginning of this episode, but we are coming at this conversation from people who we like to consider ourselves filmmakers. Right. But again, like you said, that's all. Martin Scorsese would be like, the hell are you talking about? Yeah, but like, we are at that level where that's the, you know, we are putting on a smaller scale, obviously. We're not filming, you know, $1 million budget films, but within our budgets, we are taking the aspects of filmmaking and creating the end result.
Yeah, and there's a lot of niches within filmmaking, right?
Right.
You got documentary, you've got narrative, you've got corporate filmmaking, you've got wedding filmmaking. I mean, which I think we are kind of touched everything.
Yeah, we have touched
that whole
everything,
aspect. Yeah. That's what makes, to me, in my opinion, makes us like valuable because you know, we may not get that one job that's, you know, needs the best, you know, narrative filmmaker.
Right.
You know, not yet. You know, we've got to do more work in that space. But
we have gotten jobs that they said dumb it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's, we're able to kind of adjust and do all kinds of different things. And I don't know, that's the type of person I am. So it's like, it would be really hard for me to just hard niche down on one thing because I just I want to do different things all the time and be inspired in different ways. So,
helps with burnout too, in my opinion. That's a big reason. Everybody's like, "Oh, what do you specialize in?" Nothing, because I want to just create good shit that's fun.
Yeah.
And being so diverse keeps me from getting burnt out.
And I think, we position ourselves as like documentary, like filmmakers, you know what I mean? Or commercial filmmakers.
Right.
And then that, that to me, like if we can do that well, we can do just about anything else, at a high level. And that's kind of my take on it. But, yeah, content creation it's crazy because I'd like to talk to somebody that's like 13 or 14 and see what their thought of it is because they consume it way differently.
Shoot, if you're 13 or 14, leave a review, leave a comment, let us know.
Yeah, let us know if we're just old heads talking and don't know what we're talking about because it does change.
I want to make this is going to sound like a business pitch, but I do want to bring this up because I think it's important. As filmmakers, self-proclaimed, I think it's so interesting the people that we approach with business. We don't necessarily want to be the full suite because it's time consuming. It's not really our business model. It's not really valuable in our opinion to either party. But what's interesting is I think 5 years ago, take this from a content creation standpoint or from a filmmaking standpoint, we would have probably been terrified if somebody was like, "Oh, we're going to hire somebody in-house." But now we're coming at it like, sweet.
Yeah.
Because now we get to say, we, Mediable Productions, are going to do all the big stuff.
Yeah.
All of your why stuff, all of your storytelling stuff. But that person or people that you hire is going to help support your business's overall mission.
Yeah, your day in and day out.
By getting the day in and day out content. That then we get to further explore within the films that we make for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's super valuable. I just have always preached that. So maybe we close out with this, maybe we don't, maybe we keep talking. Let's get to some value for anybody out there that's listening or watching. So I love the way that Tim Ferriss poses this on his podcast. I'm going to reframe it for our own use. What is one purchase, $100 or less, that you think would best help somebody create better content?
Create better content?
Content. I don't think if you're shopping for under $100, you're making films.
I mean, you can be.
You can be. I'm not saying don't. There have been, over COVID, we saw a full-length feature with iPhones. But for this sake, let's do content.
Dude, the most game-changing thing for me, honestly, and being a business owner and doing content has been like Notion.
Oh, you went software, not hardware.
Yeah, my brain is everywhere constantly. I've got 2 kids. I got home to take care of. We got a business, and Notion, without something like that, I would not be able to get an idea down and come back and refer to it later in a structured way that I can expand upon it. I can share it with others. Like even our podcast, right? We've been talking about it for a year or two. It didn't happen until we went on Notion and fleshed it out.
Yeah.
So, you can have all the dreams and aspirations to do things in your life, but until you take actionable steps, nothing happens. You can manifest all you want until you go out and do it. And Notion, for me, just being a software that I can start putting thoughts down, refer to them, and start making plans and moving forward it's helped so much. Because when things are in my head in the past, like it's hard to move forward and just make things happen. You're always thinking about the next thing.
Yeah.
But just having a place, whether you're journaling or writing it down, like for me, digitally, that works the best for me. And I would take that money and, I don't know what it is a month, $12 a month or whatever.
There is a free plan.
There's a free plan. but spending the money there is a great place to start for me.
I'm so shocked by that answer. I love it, but I'm so shocked by that answer.
I think I've gotten to a point where all the gear, I've gotten to a point where you can give me any piece of camera gear from the lowest level to the highest level, and I can make something good out of it.
I'm chuckling because
So I don't think it matters.
that opens up a whole another can
That's
of worms.
another
We're
episode.
getting. I was just gonna say we're getting way into the weeds with enough time to cover. Does gear
Episode
matter?
coming soon. Does gear matter?
But yeah, maybe that's another conversation. Okay, I'm just gonna selfishly answer that as well. So I'm gonna answer this two ways because I think there's value in answering this two ways. I'm gonna say one purchase under $100, but I'm also going to say if I had $100 budget. So one purchase under $100, I would say is, I really think you got to get yourself a good light. And I think there are some good
For
lights for
$100?
just, the Godox is about $100. We're going to be plus, if it's on sale, you can get it for $100, right? I think like if you can really get a good key and just create some contrast, even if you're using your phone, it's going to go a long
that's
way.
true, man.
I really do. And that's somebody who says audio is the most important thing. So if I had $100 budget, I would definitely say get yourself a good lav. So the one that we use on all of our projects is, I think I paid $60 for it. It's a tiny little capsule mic. I fit that thing in everywhere and it's hidden no matter what. And I think it sounds really good.
Caveat, it's connected to a Sennheiser, so the processing's pretty good.
Well, the Zoom.
Oh yeah, it's transmitted to the Zoom.
Oh, through the Sen.
Yeah.
Right, but like
That stuff doesn't,
the
just so
the
people
capsule,
know, that doesn't cost $60.
But again, the true. But you can still, you can get a $10.
Yeah.
But the microphone itself is what's capturing the frequency response.
Right.
So I would say definitely that, and that should leave some extra budget. You can get yourself a tiny little cube light, and I think whether you bounce that off the wall to give yourself some contrast, because obviously you don't want.
So learn how to set your room up so you can
Learn
use
how to set your
window
room
light.
up. So then that leads into my next question that I was going to ask is, what are 3 pieces of tactical advice that, let's just say somebody out there is like, you know what, I'm kind of feeling inspired. Maybe I do, I'm going to selfishly say this, want to make a quick LinkedIn video and get myself out there. What are 3 pieces of tactical advice that you would give them before they hit record for the first time?
Tactical advice. So like advice when it comes to actually
Anything.
planning their content, or like
I'm going to let you
content?
you have that space, whatever. Maybe one from each part of production.
Okay. So filming, I would say learn lighting, understand lighting. To me, lighting is everything. Because that's how I see projects. That's how I see anything. Like I have a DP mentality. Where's the light coming from? How is it telling a story? And you can instantly make something look much more professional with good lighting. Audio is definitely right there too. Tactically, I would just say like you gotta like plan, make to-do lists, figure out what each day is gonna be. Whether you're putting stuff on LinkedIn, there's got to be an approach with your posts. There's got to be an approach with what you're writing, what you're trying to portray. And that's real easy to do with a good brainstorm, and then start building out what your content's going to be that week or whatever you're kind of focusing on. But no matter what you're doing, you got to plan it. You got to be kind of a devil in the details when it comes to the pre-production, because then shooting and getting it out there becomes vastly easier when you have a direction. And this is our first time podcasting, and we have a direction and a focus for it, and it's coming across so naturally, at least in my perspective. I don't know.
This episode we've
purposely
purposely kind of let ourselves go off the rails a little bit because this is such a,
but it's
not really a
but
specific
we have a direction to start and get going, and that's key. So yeah, just learning how to plan and do more pre-production. If that's something that you're really struggling with, there are a lot of great resources out there on
YouTube University,
YouTube
baby.
U. Hey, what's pre-production? How can I get started? That'll help you whether you're a content creator, a photographer, a filmmaker, a blog post writer. There's a lot of places where you can get out there and figure out ways to plan, and learning that from different people is also important.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just going to say this, like, to anybody that's out there listening, watching, if you have a question, hit us up.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Justin's more on Instagram. I'm more on LinkedIn. Our email, go to our website. Our email is open. We have no issue if you want to send us an example of your work, see what we think of it, see if you have any, whatever question. We're going to give you the best advice that we can with our skill set. And I think, again, that's part of the pillar of why we're making this podcast, is to help those situations. But I do want to just make sure that it is known we are more than willing to be a resource.
So DIDs are filmmakers, content creators.
Man, at the end of the day, you're whatever you want to be.
Touche. And with that, we're going to sign off today. No matter how you consume this content, whether it's on your phone, it's on your TV, or you're listening to us in your car, subscribe, like, click, whatever you got to do to make sure that you can be in touch with us and be ready for the next show that comes your way. So thank you for watching today. We really appreciate you, and peace.